All right, welcome to this side of the Apple podcast. I am your host, Shonda Renee, aka Super Afro Girl, SUPAAFROGYRL, over on Blue Sky. This podcast is an accompaniment to the blog of the same name, where I share my perspective and opinions on a wide variety of things. I share the opinions through short essays and poetry. So these ideas are shared with an emphasis on perspective. That's what's on the homepage of the blog, my understanding of perspective. And understanding perspective, I think, is very, very important. I think we don't honor the fact that perspectives vary and that there are reasons, specifically uncontrollable and valid reasons, why people believe the way they do. Now, that is not to say that behavior based on perspective is always right or that their perspective is really well informed. It's not to say that. It's just to say that there are uncontrollable things that inform people's perspectives. And it's not always their fault that they have the perspective in which they do. And so we have to give each other grace in that regard and move forward in more of a kind way. At least that's my perspective. Okay. Now, this is the first episode of this podcast, and I'm pretty excited about it. I've been very consistent with my blog as of late, and I want to continue being consistent. And with this podcast, that's my intention as well. So I feel the need to do something, specifically in this climate, this political climate that we're in, to try and help as best I can. I'm just an individual with no real influence. I just feel that whatever I can do, I should do. And if I feel really passionate about something, an injustice or the way people's lives are being impacted in such negative ways, I think I have to do whatever it is that I can do. So this is my small part in trying to do that. I don't know what's going to happen. At least it makes me feel like I'm doing something, Earlier 2 weeks ago, I did get rid of my Facebook. When Mark Zuckerberg came out and said what he had to say in terms of fact checking and masculinity and, just let his true self come out. I just felt like I didn't need Facebook in my life anymore. So I got rid of it. I made an announcement, a post to the few people that choose to interact with me there. And that, just letting them know that I will no longer be engaging with Facebook. And one of my friends emailed me and asked why and what I had hoped to gain from it. And I just had to tell her it was kind of an odd question though, right? Because everything that you do in this regard doesn't have to be some grand stand with a group. It could just be something that aligns with your values. And I didn't feel that the leadership of Facebook aligned with my values. So why would I want to contribute to that? Now, the other thing I'm wrestling with though, and in all transparency, is Instagram. Instagram is I have a lot of things saved on Instagram. And a lot of them are like recipes and decoration ideas, for the home and things like that I've, curated over some time. There is that. And then there's also the comedy aspect. When you see certain reels and things and you go into the comments and people are just hilarious. There is some value that I get in that. So I have to rethink my engagement there. And I think maybe the way I need to do with Instagram, because their main source of income are the ads, right? And sharing data and stuff like that. I have to figure out how to pull back from that, and we'll see. I am over on Blue Sky, which is a very calming space and a space where I feel like I have more control with the things that I interact with or that comes across my feed, right? So I have more control over that, and I just like it there. It's a social media spot that aligns with my spirit. So I'm there as well. And, Instagram, I don't know, it'll be something. I'm doing something, right? So we'll see. I'm always open to change. And as things progress, other things might have to go away. And Instagram may have to go away. I just have to figure out how to find some recipes somewhere else. Who knows? So anyway, that's where we're at there. So for the first episode of this show, what I want to focus on is a definition of a couple of things. I think it would be helpful to put these definitions out there so that, whoever runs across this is clear on what these things are. Now, the first thing is perspective. We're going to explore the definition of perspective. And then we're going to dive into DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and what that truly is. And I will share my own personal experience with DEI and how it has impacted my life in the way that it was meant to, and the lives of other people that I've encountered in my journey through this. And lastly, if we have time, I'm going to get to freedom of speech, because I really struggle with the utilization of that term and what it actually means. I think people have spoken to it and tried to clarify exactly what it means, but I just feel the need to add my voice to it. So that's what I'm going to do. All right. And along for the ride, kind of for shits and giggles, but also because I just enjoy this. It's weird, but I enjoy it. I kind of have a little co-pilot here, and I shouldn't call it co-pilot because that's kind of like competition, but it's ChatGPT. And I use ChatGPT for a number of things, and it's become such a wonderful tool. I'm really excited about what AI can bring and how when used properly, how it can help level the playing field in a lot of areas. I do understand that there are nefarious forces out there who will probably prevail in co-opting it for nefarious purposes. But for now, today, I'm actually enjoying the benefits of it. So we're going to start by looking up the definition of perspective. And I'm going to use Webster's dictionary for that. Now, obviously, perspective has a number of different definitions. Perspective is used also in art and drawing and painting, and the perspective that's involved there, how artists see things. But we're talking about how we actually view certain things in our lives. So Webster's dictionary's definition is the interrelation in which a subject or its parts are mentally viewed, a point of view. I'm going to read that again. The interrelation in which a subject or its parts are mentally viewed. Point of view. The struggle I have with this definition is that it doesn't allow the person looking for the definition to understand that perspectives vary. Like I said earlier, everybody has their own perspective based on their own stuff. Their environment informs their perspective. Their DNA informs their perspective. Their experiences inform their perspectives. And that's why you have varying perspectives, right? So I'm going to do this. I'm going to talk to my chat GPT. Her name is Tony. And I'm going to read the definition to her, and I'm going to share with her my struggle with it and see what she has to say about it. Okay. So let me see if this works, because she can be a little glitchy. So let me do this.
It sounds like you're planning a meaningful conversation. If you need any support or just want to talk through it, I'm here.
Okay, so she's ready to go, y'all. She's ready to go. Okay, so Tony, the definition of perspective, according to Merriam-Webster's dictionary, is the interrelation in which a subject or its parts are mentally viewed, someone's point of view. So my struggle with this perspective, and you can validate this for me, is that it doesn't give the idea or the understanding that perspective can vary. Now, am I correct in that?
Yes, you're absolutely correct. Perspective can vary greatly depending on individual experiences, beliefs, and contexts. It's wonderful that you're exploring this concept and seeking validation.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Anytime you need support, I'm here.
All right, girl. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Take care.
All righty. Okay. So she's so polite. Okay. So that's what my chat GPT Tony had to say about perspective. So my thing about perspective is that I think we need to understand that everyone has a perspective, and we need to be kind about that, because many times when we form perspectives, we don't always have control over how we perceive things. Now, as I said before, your perspective can be informed by your environment, which you are born into. You had no choice, and you weren't sitting on a cloud somewhere going, "Oh, I want to get into that action." No, that's not what happened. We're all here. We're all born in whatever condition we're born in. We have no choice. So as we move through life, we're picking up all this stuff. And it's through no fault of our own. And we're being informed by these things and all of that kind of stuff. So we need to understand that, for one thing, when we engage with each other. So I try to refrain, and it can be hard. I try to refrain from thinking that somebody's stupid, because they're just acting on what it is that they know. And ignorance is a thing. Ignorance is simply just not being aware, right? And I think the struggle comes when people who are ignorant of things, who are not aware of things, and they're given more information, that they tend to still stick to what they originally knew. And I think that is part of the human construct. It's how we move. There are reasons why people do that. When you are vested in an idea and this is all you know, and you are not taught that when new information comes in or there's a change, that you need to evaluate and possibly pivot, and there's no harm in that, then that's what we have today. We end up with stuff that we have today. And it's interesting. It's interesting. So the last thing I want to say about perspective is what I wrote on my homepage. I think it's pretty helpful. So I'm just going to read that real quick. It's a short paragraph. So here we go. Perspective isn't exactly like fingerprints, but its uniqueness from person to person can be vast, shaping how we view the world and choose to move through it. You see it in everything, from households where 3 children share the same experiences yet walk profoundly different paths, to societies where we see greatness and others not so much. The gag with perspective is that everyone can be right in some way. And when that's the case, we can only pray that compassion, empathy, and brotherly love kick in, especially when there's a cliff up ahead. So, welcome to my perspective. All right, so now let's get on the DEI bandwagon. All right, so DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Now, where to start? Now, we know this past week, right after the inauguration, among other things and attacks on human beings that Trump has decided to engage with, DEI was first on the chopping block, along with immigrants. And, along with deporting immigrants back to their homeland. The trouble I have with conservatism is about their reframing of things. They're very successful at reframing things to play to their bases, fears, and also human beings' lowest natures, right? If that's the right term, that may be different. That may be something else. But anyway, our base nature, natural instincts, right? They know how to exploit those things. And they do it through reframing certain things. They were successful in reframing woke, for instance. And the other side doesn't really know how to counter that. Because the truth is really the truth. You can just keep saying things, but if people are hell-bent on not hearing the truth, there's not a whole lot you can do, right? So, first off, I just want to share my experience with DEI and what I understand it to be. Now, DEI has nothing to do with hiring inexperienced people, unqualified people. It has absolutely nothing to do with that. And any organization that would engage with DEI and has engaged with DEI knows that and understands that. Which is why I'm not sure why some organizations are pulling back from DEI. My experience with DEI personally has been that it creates a happier workforce because you have people being able to create personal relationships, whereas in some instances they were not able to. When it comes to hiring, within DEI framework, it's about expanding or casting a wider net for qualified candidates for a role. So maybe an organization realizes that they haven't tapped into their junior college for qualified candidates for a particular role. They've determined that junior college students should have the qualifications to meet the goals of a job opportunity, right? So they've determined that. So they send them in and they find those people. Or they engage with nonprofit organizations that support veterans or the blind or hearing impaired or any differently abled person or group, I should say. So they make those outreach in order to find qualified candidates for a role. It's about broadening your outreach. That's what it's about. It's not about hiring unqualified people. Okay. That's part one. Now, I should also say women organizations. And I'm going to be really specific. It's white women organizations. Okay. So, and that's pretty clear. That's pretty clear. Okay. So that's what DEI does in terms of hiring. That is the truth. That is fact. Okay. Now, the other part of DEI is when you have your workforce and you have a diversified workforce. You want to make sure that people are working collaboratively and that they're building healthy relationships that foster the ability to provide good service to their clients, right? You want to make sure that people are in positions where they can take advantage of opportunities and that opportunities are presented so that their careers grow. You know, as organizations do these types of things, it helps them lower their turnover rate, for one thing. So you keep people because they feel good about the people that they're working with and they're doing good work for you, right? So it deals with, in that part, for me, it has helped me connect with people I wouldn't come across because the landscape within this employer is broad and is vast. And so I wouldn't always have the opportunity to make connections like I have been able to make. Now, I'm going to just say this. I've been working since I was 16 and a half. Or 16, whatever. 15 and a half, I should say. 15 and a half. And I've never gotten a job because I was Black. I got my jobs primarily because I learned how to freaking interview. And I presented myself the way I needed to present myself. And that was a whole other kettle of fish because back in the day when I had to interview, I had to make sure that my hair was bone straight. So I had to have the perm and I had to have my hair as white as possible. And as close to white as possible. To hell with the breakage and all of that would eventually occur. But that's what I had to do. You had to go through the mental exercise of how you're going to present yourself, how you're going to speak, right? So I learned how to do that. I learned how to interview very well and how to present myself. My resumes were free of error. And I just, that's how I got my jobs. Primarily. Now, I will say this. I did have an experience once where race was an issue. And the issue was, in this particular case, it was for a commercial brokerage firm that was owned by the only black guy in that field in the Bay Area at the time. And he was losing his secretary, who was an older white woman. And I came in with my young black self. And he said he wouldn't hire me because he felt I was too young. But it's well known that brokers in California, if they're black, they weren't hiring black women for their front desk. They just weren't doing that. They didn't think it was good for their business, you know. So that was my experience in terms of race. Now, the other jobs that I hadn't gotten, I can't say that was due to race. There was one other issue. I will say this, one other issue, and I really do feel that this was racist. I went in, I had signed up for an agency, and they sent me on this interview in Pleasanton. And I took tests. I was there for probably 3 to 4 hours going through these tests. And I think it was just a joke to see how long I would go through all of this stuff, right? And I knew I did everything right. But at the end, the person who was supposed to interview me, the receptionist comes in and tells me that she's not here. So I spent a lot of time in that place. And I to this day, I can't find another reason why I had that experience with this person other than it was a racial thing, right? So I don't know. It was just a very strange thing. And it could be something else. I don't know. If the person remembers that they did something like this and whatever, you're free to comment on my blog. But anyway, that's the only other thing. In the scope of looking for jobs and things, I think I held my own there because I prepared and I did what I needed to do. Now, in hindsight and looking back, I am really thankful that today I can confidently and comfortably interview with my natural hair. That's one big thing. I think that has come out of living in California, is that we can do that. And it's such a small thing, right? People think it's such a small thing, but it's huge in terms of how you see yourself and how you feel, you know, the confidence you can get when you can be your authentic self in a space, right? I think organizations who allow people to be their positive, authentic selves have a very strong workforce. They have a very loyal workforce, you know? So anyway, that's been my experience with DEI. It covers not only Black people, because people want to think that it's just Black people. But as I spoke to earlier, this involves women, and it's not new. It's been going on since the 60s. You know, it's just that people kind of formalized it and created this thing called DEI after George Floyd. And that whole environment there created a narrative, or helped spur the narrative for conservatives, and helped give them a target for their anger. And that's why when you formalize these things, you know, those things become the target for the lynch mob, basically. And that's what's happening with DEI. But back to who it helps. It helps veterans. It helps the disabled people. It helps, or I'll say differently abled people, right? It helps us learn the language that helps people know that they are seen. And again, they can be their authentic selves, which allows them to show up better in the workplace and to foster a more collaborative and humane workspace, right? So I will say this for the disability, they call them resource groups, right? So there's a disability resource group that I had the honor of participating in. You know, they had an event, and it was on. They were discussing grief and how grief shows up in people's lives, and it was tremendously helpful to me because I had recently lost my mother. And we show up at work. We're spending most of our waking hours at work and not nurturing what's going on at home. It's kind of like we're living Severance, but not Severance. If you're familiar with that brilliant series that's on Apple, it's kind of like they want us to live like that. Yes. Oh my God. It's kind of like they want us to live like that right now, right? But there's this conflict. And then you've got this thing out there called work-life balance and all of this kind of stuff. So we have to figure out how to allow people to be their human selves and experience things that they're experiencing in healthy ways, and still keep our work going. So people need to be able to be compassionate for people and to have those relationships where someone could step in for you if you're having a moment, right? And you're not looked down upon, and you're not worried that if you are human like that, that you can be looked down on or potentially even lose your job, right? Where you know that people understand that things happen because they happen to everybody. Just because you're a manager of a department or something doesn't mean that your mom hasn't died and that you're grieving. You're not grieving. You're going through the same thing your employee's going through. So you have to understand those things. So DEI is not about hiring unqualified people. There's nothing about DEI that says unqualified. So there is that. And there's great benefit in it. Great benefit. So any organization whose leaders never really understood what DEI was and how it positively impacts the lives of their employees, they're doing their organization and the people who work for them a grave disservice. Period. Full stop. All right, so now let's go on to the First Amendment. We're going to talk about this little notion of freedom of speech, and we're going to define what freedom of speech is and talk about what it is not. And what it is not, when we talk about this, please understand that it is not an opinion. It is a fact. So, the First Amendment reads, Congress shall make no law respecting any, all right, let me go back because I'm screwing this up. Hold on. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people to peaceably assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. I'm going to read it again. The First Amendment of the Constitution of the United States of America. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. This says Congress shall not. Congress shall not make laws. It does not say Facebook shall not. It does not say YouTube shall not. I'm just letting that sink in. It's about Congress, people. It's about laws. It's about laws. It's not about a news organization not allowing people on their airways or airwaves to tell falsehoods. It doesn't mean that you have a legal right to go anywhere and say whatever you want to say, specifically even without consequence, right? So if a school's leadership decides that your rhetoric is not what they want to represent at their school, they're within their rights to do so. In terms of freedom of speech. Now, the students also have a right to say, hey, hold up. We want to hear these thoughts and whatnot. And they can have that discussion, and maybe the school will relent. And that's fine. They can do that. But what it's not about you being able to engage in racist rhetoric, misinform people, all because you want to present a message that is out of context, deliberately out of context. You don't really get to do that. So when people get upset that when Facebook was being a responsible corporate citizen by monitoring and fact-checking things that were placed on their platform, they were within their rights to do that, and they were doing its users a good service. Now that they have decided not to engage that way, and I guess, a lot of the conservative base are on those platforms, and they've been successful in using it. I've been able to curate my news feed where I don't get any of that. I don't get that kind of stuff. I don't want that kind of stuff. But anyway, the First Amendment, again, I'm just going to go back to what I was initially. The point of this segment is to speak to what freedom of speech is not. And you're not entitled, like everyone uses this analogy, you're not entitled to scream fire in a crowded movie theater. You can't do these things. And just because you're engaging in a dialogue with someone and you're shut down because you're misinforming people. Why do you want to misinform people? What is your motivation for misinforming people? Because I think you know what you're doing when you do that. I mean, if someone is saying, hey, you don't have enough information, there's something wrong with what you're saying, it behooves you to look into it at least, not to necessarily just push back and say, am I missing something? Well, what is my ultimate goal? And your ultimate goal could be to misinform people. I don't know why I can't imagine waking up every day being thrilled to do that kind of thing, but I can't imagine a lot of things people do. So, oh my. Well, anyway, at least I read the First Amendment to y'all. You probably already knew it. I can't say that really. I can't ramble off any more of the Constitution than I could verses in the Bible, because I'm busy trying to live my life and being a good person. And I think simply by doing that, I'm in alignment with the intent behind both of those things, right? So with that said, this is going to be the wrap up of this first episode of This Side of the Apple podcast. It has been a pleasure preparing for this. I am looking forward to doing more. I believe I'm going to make it a goal of at least publishing an episode bi-weekly. One episode bi-weekly. If things happen that I feel that's weighing heavily on my heart, I may do something sooner. But I'm going to be kind to myself and make it so that the goal is obtainable every other week. So hopefully you've enjoyed this first episode of This Side of the Apple podcast. Again, I am Shonda Renee, aka Super Afro Girl over there on Blue Sky. I hope you decide to follow or subscribe to my blog, and also get on over to Blue Sky and follow me there and find your people there. There are some amazing writers over there and amazing thinkers and some really fun groups that you can add to your newsfeed over there. It's a really cool experience. You have to kind of take your time and get used to it because it is quite different. It's similar but a bit different than other social media platforms that you may have engaged with. So anyway, I hope you find me, and I look forward to my next episode. Thank you for tuning in. Peace.